Welcome, everyone. My name is Moshe Zionce. I'm the director of Ignite Toronto. I want to begin tonight's event and really the organization with a very powerful story that made a deep impression on me. It goes back some 300 years in the time of the Baal Shem Tov. On a very cold winter day in Poland. And the Baal Shem Tov, in his mysterious way, walked into shul and pointed to a few Talmidim and said, "Come with me, come with me." And just like that, they were on a sled with the Baal Shem Tov, going to a far-away place. And he tells the driver to stop at the lake. And at the lake, he tells everyone to go out. Now, the lake was frozen. And there were many non-Jews on this lake, and they were skating. And the Baal Shem Tov says, "I want to get closer." And the Talmidim realized what's going on. And on this lake, they were carving an avodah zarah in the ice. And the Talmidim didn't want the holy eyes of the Baal Shem Tov to see the avodah zarah. So they started to do their best to shield the holy Baal Shem Tov. He says, "No, I want to get closer." And the Baal Shem Tov went right in front of where they're etching it in the ice. And he went very close, and he closed his eyes, and he started to shackle. And he stood there for a few minutes, then he got up and he left. And he brought everyone back. And that was it. And no one had any idea what this was all about. Finally, someone had the guts to ask the Baal Shem Tov, "Okay, Rebbe, what was that?" He says, "You don't know what that was?" He says, "Water is our lifeline. We can't exist without water. But sometimes the water becomes very cold. So cold that it freezes. So cold that you can actually etch an avodah zarah on this water." And the mashal is that in life, very often we can get cooled off. You can have a husband and a wife who begin a marriage, a loving, beautiful marriage, a warm marriage, and all of a sudden in time, for some reason, it cools off. And he says, "I'll give you another mashal." He says, it's like a child. A beautiful baby is born to a family, and there's so much simcha in the home. There's so much happiness. 10, 15 years go by, and all of a sudden, there's coldness. What happened? A home that was flowing with love and simcha, all of a sudden there's a coldness in the house. And a 15-year-old boy won't speak to his father, and vice versa, chas v'shalom. Or a daughter that won't speak to her mother. All of a sudden it's cooled off. So what's this all about? And the Baal Shem Tov says that this is really just all a mashal for our relationship with Hashem. We have a Father who cares about us, who wants everything only positive for us and does only good for us. And sometimes, somehow, the relationship can get cooled off. And all of a sudden you turn around and it's like, what happened? What happened here? And really this is the way of life. Baruch Hashem, we had a beautiful day in Toronto finally. We're getting some nice weather. But it's inevitable, and I don't got to break the news to you, that eventually it's going to be freezing cold again. It's just a cycle, the way the world runs, that things cool off. And the only way to keep us going, to keep the warmkeit, to keep us warm, is to be ignited with Yiddishkeit. We need again and again a jolt of inspiration again and again. And this is what I've come to present to everyone here tonight, to create that warmkeit, that continuous warmkeit. It should be that Shachris is the most exciting part of our day. That's what it should be. It's a point that it should be we can look back our day and count all the times that we felt connected to Hashem. It's inevitable that it always will cool off. It's inevitable. But this is the inspiration, this is the chizik that we're trying to bring to the city. Baruch Hashem, in a city like Toronto, there is so much that we have. We Baruch Hashem have schools for every type of child in the city, Baruch Hashem. And there's so much choice for parents. And Baruch Hashem, there's Kiruv, and every organization is so precious and so important, it saves lives. We have Chesed, that's incredible. And there's so much going on. But if you think about it, what are we offering to the adults of our community? After a person leaves yeshiva, kollel, seminary, etc., what are we offering the adults of our community? And Baruch Hashem, you should know there's so much incredible education out there that can be brought to the city. I mean, very often it's already here. We just have to open our eyes and expose ourselves to it. Who doesn't need chizik every now and then? No matter where you're holding, no matter what madrega a person's on, who doesn't need another jolt of simcha, particularly when he's dealing with a difficult time? Who doesn't need more chizik and emunah? There's so much that we can offer the city. There are speakers here in the city that very often no one knows about and have so much talent. I have to tell you, in the world of Kiruv, and Baruch Hashem, I had the chus to work in Kiruv for many years. In the world of Kiruv, we have it almost down to a science. We know exactly what can be done, how to get people excited. Making someone frum isn't an easy job. You got to get them very passionate about their Yiddishkeit. And from A to Z, we know how to figure this out. But for the frum community, there really isn't something set, something established. There really is not a system for it. And what I'm asking you here today from everyone is, let's work on this together. I'm going to tell you some of the programming that we have. But the concept is, let's develop a system of inspiration for the frum community. I spoke to a Rabbis in our city about the concept what Ignite Toronto is trying to accomplish. And she said to me as follows. She said, you know, our children watch and know and observe everything. A child knows what a parent is passionate about. They get it. So if it's Yiddishkeit, Baruch Hashem, you've passed it on. But if for whatever reason it's not, and we pass on something that isn't the passion, that isn't a true passion, what a real passion should be, and we pass that on to our children, what message are we giving them? Ignite Toronto is not just about bringing passion to our own Yiddishkeit. It's about passing that on to our children and igniting an entire community. It shouldn't be that we should look around and see people that aren't excited. There are things that can be done. There are shiurim that we can bring them to. There are many incredible events that we can offer the city. I'll give you a few examples. I spoke to many Rabbanim and educators about what this organization could be, what it could look like. And they said, in general, there are two approaches to how to ignite a person. One is, let's call it educational. And as I said, there are so many classes and incredible speakers that if you'd hear them, they'd change your life. That's here, like I said, in Toronto and abroad. You hear it, it would make all the difference to your Yiddishkeit. You wouldn't be the same person ever again. That's education. And what we're calling experiential, is the feeling that you get. If educational is the moyach, is the brain, is the intellect, then experiential is the neshama. It's trying to affect the soul. Imagine if it was the norm in Toronto for a kumzitz, and I'll speak to you more about it, a monthly kumzitz, a shalashudas kumzitz, for example, a weekend getaway of chizik, etc. There's so much that we can offer. And Baruch Hashem, as I said before, in the Baal Tshuva world, some of this is just, it's obvious. This is what you have to do for Yidden. It's been figured out and it's been accepted. Well, there's a lot that we can do in our community to get the entire community excited about the Yiddishkeit. Okay, you didn't come to hear me. It's indeed a real privilege and an honor to welcome Rav Moshe Tuvia Leiff. He's a world-renowned Rav and speaker. For nearly 2 decades, he led and built the congregation Beis Yisrael in Minnesota. After it's been more than about 3 years, he's a Mord Asra of Aguda in Flatbush on Avenue L. I have to tell you, he was so easygoing and so accommodating to come tonight and to make it possible to bring him in. When I heard him, I knew he was the right person to help begin this organization. He's a person that lives with passion, and I'm sure if you haven't heard him yet, you're going to find out he speaks with passion. It's indeed an honor and a privilege to welcome Rabbi Moshe Tuvia Leiff.
Shus Agoyim Rabbi Shemot Chaloi, Shliti Yedidi V'Chavivi, the Rabbi of the Aguda here in Toronto. Rav Paysach Krohn, a tremendous Isaac B'tzach Etzibah Be'emuna, a gewaldige Marbetz Torah, also the Moil of Tumah Eneklach, and Bereshus Rabbi Zionce for putting this together and inviting myself and Rabbi Krohn. Achai V'Rei. I have a friend of mine, he lives in Monsey, New York. His name is Rabbi Levitan. He's a Rosh Hashiva and a Rav. He has a nephew who learns in the Chevron, Givat Mordechai, in Yerushalayim, 1,000 Talmidim. Many of the Talmidim are Bachurim who are Svardish Bachurim. They come from that background, but they're tremendous B'nai Torah. His nephew's Chavrusa happens to be one of the best Bachurim in the yeshiva, a Svardish Bachur. This young man, last year in the summer, got a phone call from Safta. Safta is his great-grandmother. She's a lady who came from Morocco, a great tzaddikus. She speaks a perfect Hebrew, but she cannot read Hebrew. She reads Arabic, and she speaks Arabic fluently, and Hebrew as well, but she can't read Hebrew. A real great tzaddikus. He gets a phone call, Erev Shabbos in the morning. I want to go visit Zaidi, Grandpa. He can't believe his ears. Saba? Ken, יש לי דברים שאני צריך לדבר איתו, להתייעץ איתו, things to discuss, take his advice. סבתא, סבא כבר נפטר, הוא בבית החיים, בהר הזיתים. He's no longer among the living, he's in Har HaZeitim. I know, I want to talk to him. He rents a car, he drives to Har HaZeitim, he parks at the top of the mountain, they make their way down, and he says, Safta, Saba Be'ezor. He's in this neighborhood right here, a few kvarim over. He says a few kapitlach tilim. And on his own, he meanders away for an hour or two. There are Nevi'im there. Zechariah Navi, Rishonim, Acharonim. Our Chaim HaKadosh is there. He comes back about 2 hours later, and it's a Chamsin, and he sees Safta from a distance. She's singing, she's dancing, she's crying. She's talking to Saba. He gets closer. He can't believe his eyes. Safta, ze lo Saba, ze ta'ut. You're not by Zaidi's caver, it's a mistake. Ma ta mevalbel li et hamoach. Ani medaber ito, no, hu medaber iti, I'm talking to him, he's talking to me. Safta, ze lo Saba, ma ta omer katuv kan Schlesinger, ze Schlesinger. You're standing by Schlesinger's caver. As for Saba. So he looks over, 6 kvarim over, he points. So she takes her cane, and she hobbles over to Saba. It's a sweltering hot day. She is exhausted. She's melting. She looks at the cave and she says, Saba, אני כבר מת. אני צריך ללכת הביתה, זה ערב שבת. תדבר עם שלזינגר, הוא כבר יגיד לך את כל הסקר. For the 3 who didn't understand what I said, I'm exhausted. Talk to Schlesinger. He'll fill you in all the details. Ladies and gentlemen, there are people that spend 120 years in the wrong place, investing all their resources, their time, their energy in the wrong place. The right place is the Torah Kedosha. The right place, believe it or not, is the men's side. There are about 10 times as many ladies as men. You know why? Because the men, they're at their stardom learning. Now, many took away from the Seder to come, but many are already self-ignited. And the reason why they're self-ignited is because of this side of the room that says, I'll go here this year, you go to your Chavrusa, you go to your Shir and Gemara. Yiddishkeit is all about investing your family's resources in the right place. Your time, your effort, your tears, to daven for the right things, and to learn, and to encourage your family. Don't wait till 120 years to figure out that you were by Schlesinger. You have to be with your family. You have to build from within. We're a generation that's very concerned with insulating our families. What about building our families? What about creating such excitement and geschmack in a Blat Gemara, in a Maaseh Chesed, in a phone call cheering up someone, that the other things in life don't entice us so much? That's the challenge of our door. Avram Avinu was visited by 3 malachim. And a malach doesn't multitask. The bane of our society is that we don't focus on each other. We multitask, and we think, when it's shayach, it's gewaldig, I can do 8 things at the same time. That's the worst thing you can do in life. Several years ago, I was in my office in Minneapolis when I was the Rav there, I was looking at different svarim, learning different things, and I got a phone call from an eminent psychologist from St. Paul, a frum fellow. And he starts talking to me, and he's on speakerphone, and I'm looking through svarim very quietly, not rustling any pages, and after 4 minutes he says, Rav, is this a good time? I said, what do you mean, Eli? He says, you're not connecting to me. And I said, you know what, you're right. And I closed all the svarim and I paid attention to him. Part of the issue is, as Moshe mentioned a few moments ago, what are our interests, our primary interests in life? In New York, like in every city, many mothers with a commuter cup of coffee are wheeling their children and they're on the cell phone. I saw a mother with a young child a few years ago, not far from my shul. And I see this 2-year-old toddler and he's saying, Mommy, Mommy, 2 hands, 2 hands. And I chop what the child wanted. The mother was talking on the phone and pushing the stroller. So what the child wanted was attention. Focus on me. We're out for an outing. You're going for a speed walk. You're taking me along. Focus on me. So the mother listens to the child. I get into my car. I drive around the corner. I see the same scene, the same mother. And this time Shitaka has the stroller and she's pushing it with 2 hands, but the phone is cradled between her neck. So what has she exactly accomplished? It's 2 hands. You pick up a child, an anicle from carpool, and you're on the phone, and the kid wants to explode with all the things that are exciting in life, and you're busy on the phone. What are you telling the child? You're motion quiet. I'm talking to Sprincy about a sale. This is ridiculous. We're multitasking. A malach doesn't multitask. And if you want to raise Darish Hashem Meveirachim, and you want to figure out a way to ignite a community in yourself, see, it's a funny thing today. I heard from a mechanech in Eretz Yisrael, a choshev mechanech. He said, Rabbi Yisrael Salanta said when he was a youngster, he hoped to change the world. He got older, he hoped to change his community. When he was an older person, he hoped he changed himself. Today, people start off by changing themselves, and they find that too difficult. Let me change the world. It's the exact opposite. I'll figure out some cure-all for the entire world. It starts with you. It starts with your excitement for Torah, for mitzvahs, for chesed, for shmiras haloshen. So Avram Avinu is visited by 3 malachim, and the question is why? Each malach has his own tafkid. Levaser es Sarah, to cure Avram, to destroy Sodom v'Amorah. Malach Gavriel was not necessary in Krohn to visit Avram Avinu. He should have gone directly to Sodom v'Amorah and destroyed Sodom v'Amorah. He had one mission. He didn't need to eat the Gimel L'Shonis and Chardal. They were malachim. They didn't eat. And in essence, 2 could have visited Avram Avinu, who said Avram Avinu would have been able to be mekayim the mitzvah of chesed. What was Gavriel doing by Avram Avinu? In Tavshin Lamed Gimel, Rabbi Pelkowitz, who was then the rabbi of the White Shul, he's now Rabbi Emeritus, said at a Levi the following. If the Malachim and the Malach Gavriel would have gone directly to Sodom v'Amorah to destroy the city, they would have seen the immorality, the decadence, the cheapness of life. And they would have come back to Shemaim after destroying Sodom v'Amorah, and Gavriel would have said, as the Malachim have said before the creation of the world, Mo enoish ki siskerena, uven adam ki sifkedena. There's no tachlis to mankind. Look how immoral they are. Look how decadent they are. Destroy the entire world. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he tells Gavriel, take down this ktovet, write down this address. Go to Krohn and visit this human being, Avram Avinu. Zevos ken veren von a mensch. See how it can be mekadesh im shemayim barabim, drawing thousands tachas kanfei hashchina, sanctifying the Rabbeinu Shalom through lechem v'yoyin, and now go and destroy Sodom v'Amorah. And I guarantee you right now, at this very moment, the malachim are looking down and they're saying to the Rabbeinu Shalom, Mo enoish ki siskerena, uven odom ki sifkedena, the futility of the human condition, the internet, and all the taivas, the challenges of a moral society in a decadent time, destroy the world. And the Rebbe Shalom points to this Beis Yaakov tonight, and he says, Zevos can ve'em von a mensch. How hundreds and hundreds of individuals can get together to figure out a way to create a hishtoikekus for avodas habayre, to grow closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But golnish was the time at its sight. Busy individuals, busy men, busy women, youngsters. They have a lot of things to do in life. Many things they can entertain themselves with. Mo enosh ki siskereno, this is the answer. Just as Avraham Avinu was the answer thousands of years ago, this is the answer tonight. B'nai Aliyah, B'nai Yisraeliyah, who are looking to elevate themselves and strengthen themselves in Avodas Hashem. As the Vilna Gaon explained, the consummate pedagogue is the mechanech compared to a large kais surrounded by smaller kaises, and it's the overflow. That's what we need today. An overflow and excitement in Yiddishkeit, in Torah, and in mitzvahs. In New York, as in many communities, there was a whole night of Shavuos learning. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands learned. But we introduced something new 2 years ago. A second night of Shavuos learning. No, we're not creating a new minig, but we're showing the Rebbe Shalom it's so geschmack, we want to do it again. You know, it's very funny. I have a friend of mine, Chaim Goldbaum. He's part owner of B&D Travel in New York. And we walk a few times a week. He told me that something happened a few weeks ago that revolutionized the industry, the travel industry. They got a very important message from Walt Disney Corporation that this week, as we speak right now, Memorial Day weekend in New York, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and Monday, 3 major Disney theme parks will be open for 24 hours a day. Heltamaisa, you could ride Magic Mountain at 4 o'clock in the morning. For 4 days in a row, you can meet Cinderella at the palace, at the castle. 24 hours, come on, Shlomi, it's 4 o'clock in the morning, it's Kedai, we'll get on the ride a 19th time. Such a gewaltige Sache. Well, you know what, we did the same thing. We rode a different mountain, the mountain to Har Sinai. And hundreds of thousands of Yidden stayed up the night of Shavuos to learn. And then in our shul and in 12 other shuls in Flatbush, they stayed up a second night and they learned. And they showed the Rabbeinu Shalom, this is the most exciting thing in life. Zulu Mazu. When I was at the Siyum HaShas in Toronto, it was wonderful. I was also at the Siyum HaShas in London. And in London, the Royal Festival Hall, the Olympics was just down the road. And the Kloisenberger Rebbe spoke, and then I spoke. And I said, down the road, they think they have the real torch. From Athens, Greece, we have the real torch. From Sinai. And the curtain has descended on the Royal Festival Hall because the Sachet Shavish Shemi Shmuel, he says that Mesechta means Mosach Shara Chotzer. It insulates Klal Yisrael. You want to build your children, insulate them with a Daf Gemara, with a Mesechta. That's the word Mesechta. So you have to realize that Zulu Mazu. The Gemara says in Kedushin and Pogam Manuvl Zeh Moshcheu LeBeis HaMedrash. If the Yetzer Hara grabs hold of you, schlep him to the Beis HaMedrash. Now, why would you want the Yetzer Hara in the Beis HaMedrash? Deposit him at the door. Rabbi Tzadok discusses this in many places. The challenge of our day is to combat the Yetzer Hara with the Yetzer Hara for Torah. If the Yetzer Hara is going to be so exciting, and you're going to leave him at the door and come into a shir, a blat gemara, a ma'aseh chesed, fashlofen, it doesn't combat the Yetzer Hara. But if you use the koyach of the Yetzer Hara b'shnei yitzrecha to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then you're going to succeed in life. We have to find the koyach and learn from the Yetzer Hara. My father Zatzal would often quote from Rameir Shapiro. Yankov Avinu says, Im lovan garti v'tayag mitzvah shemarti v'lo limaneti mimaisa v'roim et hakrechts. Halavai, I learned from Lovan how to do a mitzvah like he does in Avera. That's the reason for the internet. That's the reason for the technology and all the shtusim in life. It's to teach us how to have an excitement for Torah and for mitzvahs. There's a concept called arvus. Arvus means that one Jew is a guarantor for another. The ultimate guarantors at the time of Har Sinai were the children. The children guarantee the survival of Klal Yisrael and the Torah. As the Panovich Rav would say, an orphan is one that has no parents. An orphan nation is one that has no children. Amen Gediyah, amen Tiyasha. So you have to ignite the children to ignite yourself. That's Maimed Har Sinai when you teach the third door. So how do you do this? You know what Arvus means? When you make Kiddush, even though you've been Yotzi Yechiv, you can fulfill somebody else's obligation because you're an Orev. Kol Yisrael Orevim Zeh B'zeh. So Machreinim learn Pshat, if I make Kiddush and somebody else hasn't yet made Kiddush, I have not yet been Yotzi my Chiyuv. That's Arvus. That means when I make Kiddush for the 12th person, I'm making Kiddush for myself. Kozman, a community is not excited about Torah mitzvahs 24/7, so feltzach and dein Kiddush. So you have to create that kind of derech halimud, chashivos haTorah, love for mitzvahs that ignite everyone. The Brisker Rav loved the mitzvah of Daled Minim. A month before Sukkot, he sent out shluchim to Morocco to secure a perfect esrog. And for weeks he was nervous prior to the Yom Tov about being Mekayim the mitzvah. And the days grew closer, and he kept on sending shluchim, and they couldn't understand, what does the Rav want? The boat is on its way. To make a very long story short, with all the ishtadlis, the shliach came back a few hours before Sukkot, empty-handed. Somehow or other the boat would not release the esrogim, and the Rav wouldn't have this esrog for Sukkot. So the Brisker Rav responded, as mehot nisht is mimpata. If you don't have, you putter. And then he said where he got that idiom from. The Beis HaLevi, his grandfather, was the Rav of Brisk. And one of the members of his kehillah came to him and asked him a special favor. His mother lived in Shavel, a far city in Lithuania. And it was very hard to be Mekayim the mitzvah of Kibbut Avayim. So she was coming for Yom Tov. Would the Rav explain to her how beneficial it would be for her to move to Brisk? Her children lived in Brisk, her grandchildren lived in Brisk. They'd have a wonderful time together, Shabbos, Yom Tov, during the week. And the Rav said he'd do his best. He met the lady, and after Yom Tov, he came back to the fellow and said, I can't help you. She's to stay in Shavuot. And I'll tell you why. She told me, Brisker Rav, when I was a youngster, my father had one dream, to own his own set of Daled Minim. In Lita, even in America, in the 50s and the 60s, the shul would buy a few sets. It was too expensive. People didn't buy their own sets. In Shavuot, there was one set of lulav and esrog, and this fellow wanted his own esrog. So he saved kopek after kopek for 30 years, amassed a small fortune in his eyes, and went to see the Meicher Esrogim a few months before Sukkot. He opened up the bag, dumped out the contents, and the fellow starts counting. Kopek after kopek after kopek, and he's waiting breathlessly for the announcement of his lulav and esrog. And he turns to him with sorrowful eyes and he says, I feel so bad, there's not enough even for a chinuch set. It's too little, and esrog is exorbitant. Use the Rav's esrog. And the man walks out crestfallen. And he walks out the door, he's outside of the Meicher Esrogim's home. Comes up with a brainstorm. He turns to his wife and he says, we're getting older in our years. Why don't we sell our home? We have a little villa, let's sell it. And we'll move into a little basement apartment. And we'll take the proceeds, the profits, and buy a lulav and esrog. And she said one word, maskim. And they sold their home. And they came back to the Meicher. And they gave him a wad of cash. And he looked at it and he says, with this I can buy you the nicest lulav and esrog, not in Shavel, but in all of Lita. And good to his word, a few days before Rosh Hashanah, he comes with a magnificent Behudadik esrog. They show it to the Rav, and the Rav says, I'm benching on your esrog. And the word spread out to Shava like wildfire. This elderly couple has the most magnificent lulav and esrog. The husband would go to work early in the morning, going to the Beis Medrash to learn and to work. And slowly people would come by and beg the wife just to see the esrog, to inhale the fragrance of that mitzvah. They sold their house for the mitzvah. And she would lovingly take off the matting and show the esrog. And one day, a few days before Sukkot, after Yom Kippur, she doesn't know how it happened, but as she was handing it over to a fellow to examine it, it fell on the ground, and the pitum broke. A pasla esrog. And she's going crazy. She doesn't know what to do. And her husband comes home, and she falls to the floor, hugging his feet and crying, mein Har, my husband, my master, I don't know what to tell you. What happened? What happened? One of the children aren't well. One of the Einiklach, what happened? The hospital, what's going on? She says, I can't believe it, but I dropped the esrog and the pitum broke. And the husband said two things. The first thing he said was, as min hot nicht is min pata. If you don't have an esrog, you pata from the mitzvah. And then he went on to say, the zelbe Rabbeinu Shalom, the same Rabbeinu Shalom that commanded us to take a lulav and esrog, commanded us to respect our wives, not to get angry at our wives. As mahot nicht is min pata. And this granddaughter turned to the Rav and said, I'm an almana, and my children don't live here. But when I go to the marketplace, I pass that house that my grandparents lived in. That's the house they sold for a lulav and esrog. And that's the house they sold for an esrog that my grandfather refused to get angry at my grandmother because the Zelber Rabbeinu Shalom had commanded to take a lulav and esrog, commanded not to get angry at a wife. How could I leave Shavuot? And the Brisker Rav said, you're right. Rabbi said this evening is about building and creating homes that our children and grandchildren will point to and say, that's the house of Bobby and Zaidi, of Saba and Safta, where there was Shalom Bayis, where there was Torah, where there was mitzvahs, where there was chesed, where there was achnotz asorchem, and it was besimcha. How could I leave Toronto? How could I move out of the neighborhood? How could I not stay connected? That's what we're trying to create. That's the community that's here and that's continuing to flourish. A community of excellence in Torah and chesed. I know many of you. I know many of your homes. It's a question of just igniting a bit further. It's not a question of starting a brand new process, but of taking the incredible Rabbonim and Gedolei Torah that you have and having to give more shiurim and more ischaskus and kumzitzin and all the programs that this wonderful organization that's being inaugurated this evening is all about. Igniting yourself. A lot of times we're worried about the Yetzer Hara. Let me tell you a vort that I heard on the plane to Eretz Yisrael. My Rebbe was Nifta Marna Gerner B'Fol Shmuel Birnbaum. I was able to fly from Minneapolis and be one of the Talmidim who did the Tahara of my Rebbe, accompanied the Aron to the Mir, went to Eretz Yisrael on the same plane as the Rebbe. I was able to be kaiva him and to be maspid him. And on the plane, his son, the current Rosh Hashiva, told me a vort, a nifladik vort that talks to our door. You know, there was a legendary machlokes between Moran of Shmuel Zatzal and Moran of Shteiman Shlit as to who the greater group of Talmidei Chachamim where they were to be found. In the United States, in Canada, in North America, or in Eretz Yisrael. The Chavrei HaKollel, the Talmidei Yeshiva, the B'nai Torah who are Balabatim. Rav Shteiman said, of course, Eretz Yisrael, they live with such Mesiras Nefesh and such Dachkes. And Rav Shmuel would protest and he'd say, Nain, America, Toronto, Montreal, Minneapolis, Milwaukee, New York, Muncie, the greatest Yidden in the world live there. And I'll tell you why. Yankov Avinu proclaims, Eileich ve'ereno b'terem omus. I have to go see Yosef HaTzadik, my son, before I die. I have to be reunited with Yosef one last time. Rav Shmuel, of course, once Yosef dies, he's not going to see him. Said Reb Shmuel, he answered based on what Rabbi Chonan Zatzal of Baranovich told the Bachram. Chap Taraynet gezen the Chofetz Chaim. Seize the moment, carpe diem, seize the day, go run and see the Chofetz Chaim. Because here in this world you could see the Chofetz Chaim, but Asad Lava, in the world to come, where they know who the Chofetz Chaim is, you won't be able to catch a glimpse of the Chofetz Chaim. You won't be in his mechitzas. Said Reb Shmuel, Yankov Avinu was the Bechir Avos. And who said this for it? The Masmer Ador, my Rebbe Reb Shmuel Birnbaum. He was Ish Tob Yosef Eholim, but Yosef was Oymed ben Esayin. Yosef was called Yosef HaTzadik by Chazal because he faced the Yetzer Hara up close, mano a mano, and the Yetzer Hara blinked. According to the Medrash, the Nisayin of Yosef HaTzadik with Eshes Potiphar was more difficult than all the Nisyonis of Avram Avinu combined with all the other Avos. And Yosef won. He was Oymed ben Esayin. According to another Medrash, Eshes Potiphar came to him for 2 years every single day. I'm your key out of prison. And he ignored her. Rod Mustuknei Shel Aviv. And he wasn't swayed by the Yetzer Hara. So Reb Shmuel Birnbaum Yankov Avinu says, Eilech ve'erena b'terem, almost here in this world I can still see him. But la'asad lavai, where they know where it means to be Oymed ben Esayin, I may not be zeicher to see my son. I didn't say this. Shmuel Birnbaum said it. We are a door of Nisyonis, of Yetzer Hara. So don't complain that we have so many challenges in life. We're the greatest generation that ever lived. No door had such Nisyonis. And the Rebbeinu Shalom gave us all these instant taivas. He's giving us all the Torah and the mitzvahs to counter them with a geschmack, with a brand. So that our children are the greatest children. They make decisions to learn Torah. I was in a yeshiva of boys that are a little bit off the derech. 300 people were learning in the Beis Medrash, 2 o'clock in the morning. Standing room only. One of thousands of places all over the world. Almost ours is a door that's Oymed ben Esayin. And the tools are that same Yetzer Hara. And you have to realize we're an incredible generation. And rather than looking for fault and knocking our kids, we have to build them up and honestly tell them how proud we are of them, that they're Oymed ben Esayin. That they dress properly and they act properly and they eat properly and they learn properly. And we have to do so by example. That's the aside of this Nisayin of our door. It's to harness all this energy and use it to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And Rabbi Tzadok talks about this extensively, as so many others do. Take the shukah that you have for everything else and channel it for Torah and for mitzvahs. That's lo manigora. Imdu ve'eshma, says Moshe Rabbeinu. Stand in tefillah, as the Gemara in Brachas says, Amid is a lashon of tefillah. And the shtoikikus was so strong, they brought down another mitzvah. That's how the Zohar learned 613 mitzvahs came to Klal Yisrael. However, Avram Avinu knew all Taryag mitzvahs. He had his shtoikikus to reveal the presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he was zeicher to do so. And the mitzvahs came down. That's our job. Our job is to create a simchas hachaim, an enjoyment for Torah and for mitzvahs, so that our children say, Lama Nigora, why should we be prevented from serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu in such an incredible oifen? And the one who says this is Chacham Ovadia, Rabbi Ovadia Yosef, Bavus the Gemara. The Gemara talks about the fact that the Malachi Hasharis are fighting Ma'ya Lud Isha Peches and Shabbos. What is he doing with the Torah HaKadoshah? Rebbeinu Shalom, Torah Shatanois and Li Maksiv Ba, Moshe Rabbeinu answers, Anochi Hashem Aleikecha. You have to understand, why didn't the Malachim want to have Moshe Rabbeinu receive the Torah? And why did Moshe almost acquiesce? Moshe Rabbeinu was terrified of the Malachim. And Chazal say that Moshe Rabbeinu says to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Shema Yisrafuni behevel piyem. B'mon Shabbos kuf yites. Einei doime hevel pi. Sheyesh boichet. Lehevel peh shein boichet. Says Rabbi Vadia, Moshe Rabbeinu was really scared of the Malachim. Because Klal Yisrael has chet. Klal Yisrael has a Yetzer Hara. And the Malachim are pristine. They never stumble, they never fall, they never fail. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Moshe Rabbeinu, Echois bekisei kvoidi v'herzel lehem tshuva. Hold on to my kisei HaKoved and respond to them. Says Chacham Ovadia, the tshuva is the concept of tshuva. Gedoyle tshuva shemagas at kisei HaKoved. Einay doime. There's no comparison between an individual who's about tshuva. The mokim shebal tshuva oimdim tzadikim gemura meinichem ulamay. You know what the dialogue was all about? Moshe Rabbeinu says, how could we receive the Torah? We have a Yetzer Hara. And you know what the response is? That's why you're receiving the Torah. Because you have the ability to stumble, to fall, to pick yourself up, and to get stronger. And to constantly build yourself. So just the opposite. You think the Yetzer Hara is the worst thing in the world. It's the greatest thing. It builds our character. And when a person is faced with a Yetzer Hara and his Omer ben Husayn, he becomes the tzaddik, and the Malach HaSharas tremble before him, that's our door. That's our Nisayan. I want to end with a story. In Eretz Yisrael, there are thousands of children that are connecting now to Yiddishkeit. And one day in one of the Leiff Lachim schools, a child is brought in at the age of 8. He's enrolled in the school. And the Rabbi sits him down in a seat and lovingly asks him, what's your name? And he says, my name is Yochanan Hasandler Elbaz. Yochanan Hasandler Elbaz? What's your real name? That's my name, Yochanan Hasandler. Recess time, he goes to the principal and he says, this is not going to work. This kid is pulling my foot, my leg. Yochanan Hasandler. He says, that's his name and this is his story. There were 2 friends who were architects. And they worked designing roads in Eretz Yisrael. One of them was the Erlich Yid, and one was a not yet Erlich Yid. The not yet Erlich Yid had a villa, 2 cars, life of Riley. And one day as they're working on some roads, he turns to his friend, the Haredi, and he says to him, I'm so jealous of you. You have children, you have a life. We have 2 cars, we have a villa, it's meaningless. He says, you know what? Listen to me. There's a sacred place in Israel. It's called Meron. Rameir, Shimon Bar Yochai is buried there. Go there and daven. This doesn't talk to me. Fine. Time goes by. A few years later, they meet up again. And the fellow, this time, starts to cry. And he says, Mamash, ein li makom ba'olam, ein li eladim, ein li bayit, ein li klum. He says, my friend, listen to me. You know what today is? Today's Lag BaOmer. We're 4 kilometers away from Meron. Go to Reb Shimon Bar Yochai and daven. The schus of Yitfilis, as a beten by the Rabbeinu Shalom. So he starts making his way up the mountain. There's a problem. There's like 200,000 people in front of him. Tells the guy in front of him, listen, I got to get there before Shkia. He says, you got me. You got my place, but how are you going to get there? There's another 200,000 people. He says to me, I'll tell you an idea. I'll give you an eitzah. You're not davening to any man. You're davening to Hashem. In the schus of a Heilige Tana, not far from this great Tana, Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, is a Yochanan Hasandler. It's pretty quiet there today. Go daven there. It'll be easy to get there. He says, great idea. He walks up the mountain, veers to the right, goes into the caver of Rabbi Yochanan Hasandler. It's much easier to get in. This is the tefillah of a chiloni, of a fellow who's not yet religious. He says, Yochanan Hasandler achim anachnu. Yochanan Hasandler, we're brothers. Etzlacha ze b'sheket. In your house it's quiet, and in my house it's quiet. By your neighbor it's very busy, and by my neighbors it's very busy. I'm going to say prakim b'tilim. I'm going to daven. Help me out to have a ben zachar. He pours his heart out in tefillah. 9 months later, his wife gives birth to a baby boy. They named the child Yochanan Hasandler. But that's it. They don't become Shomrei Shabbat. They don't eat kasher. The kid's 8 years old, Yochanan Hasandler. He's walking past a beautiful building. And he walks inside, and he sees this curtain and tapestry. And he feels a gentle touch to his shoulder. It's the Rav of the Bet Knesset. B'ni, ma ani echol lasot b'shvacha? Ma kan? Ma b'fnim? What's inside? It's the Aron Kodesh. Ubefnim ze Torah Kedosha. That's the Aron Kodesh. The Holy Torah is inside. Ani rotzeh lelmod et Torah. So he takes out the Torah and he starts learning with the boy. He takes out a Chumash. He comes home and he says, Abba, ani rotzeh lelmod et Torah. Absolutely not. We have enough trouble with this name Yochanan HaSandler. That's as far as it goes. So the kid decides on the slide to learn with the Rav. And he tells his parents that they have a new coach for soccer, Kadur Regel. His name is Pele Goldberg. And Pele is going to teach him how to play soccer. And they're all excited. And for about 6 months, once a week, he goes to learn with the Rav, and they think he's playing soccer. One day, the parents decide to surprise Yochanan HaSandler after school and take him to a misada, to a restaurant. They come there, and they can't find him. They look on the playground. They ask some kids, Atem makirim Yochanan HaSandler? They say, with a name like that, everybody in the school knows Yochanan HaSandler. Efohu? Lo yadeh, we don't know. Kadoregel, Pele Goldberg. Not our school, it's a different school. We don't have no soccer. They come home and they're waiting. He comes home a few hours later. Yochanan HaSandler, Efa Ayita? Kadoregel. Yochanan HaSandler, Efa Ayita, where were you? Ani lomed Torah. Ani ohevet HaTorah. Ani rotzeh lelmod Torah. I love the Torah. I want to learn Torah. So this father walks out in the streets of Cholan, and he looks up at the sky and he says, Yochanan HaSandler nitzachta. Yochanan HaSandler nitzachta. Yochanan HaSandler, you win. Yochanan HaSandler, you win. And the next day he enrolled his son in the Bet Sefer Haredi. Look around this room. Rabbi Kiva nitzachta. Moshe Rabbeinu nitzachta. Rabbi Yankiv Kamenetsky was a Rav here in Toronto, nitzachta. All the Rosh Yeshivas, all the Rabbis, all the Gedolim, nitzachtem. You win. Yidden have a shtoikikos for Torah and for mitzvahs. Asher bacha bonu mikol amim. Ato bechaltonu mikol amim. Didn't we choose HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Says the Gemara in Shabbos, Kuf Nun Zayin, we weren't supposed to exist. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu took Avram Avinu Lamalam and Amazl. And Avram Hoyledes Yitzchak says, Rabbi Yonis and Eibeshitz, you know what that means? That we can do it. Yishmael could not receive the Torah because according to their Mazel, they ganovim. There's Bechira Chavshis, but their Mazel, they ganovim. Edoim, the Nazis, Yimach Shemam, they're Reitzchim. That's their Mazel. We are the Malam in our Mazel. There is no Mazel. Klal Yisrael doesn't operate according to Mazel. That's how we pay full tuition. That's how we give tzedakah. That's how we set aside hours to learn. That's how we do chesed. That's how we come on a busy evening or Tuesday night to learn to grow in Torah and mitzvahs because we're the Malam and our Mazel. Kadosh Baruch Hu should be meitiv that we should continue growing. Toronto is an Ir ve'ein b'Yisrael. It's Yedua in chesed, in Torah, in Yiras Shamayim, in Shmiras Haloshin, in mitzvahs. It's coronated and crowned with Gedolei Yisrael like Rav Lowy and all the Rashi Kollel and all the Gedolim, the Rashi Yeshivas, the Mesiftis, the Rabbanim. Now all you need to do is take it to the next level. Work on yourselves and on your families b'simcha. To serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'simcha. That the Rebbeinu Shem looks down, this is the reason for Brias HaOlam, Toronto, Canada. This is the reason why the world continues to exist. And not only will it bring so many Yidden back to the Rebbeinu Shalom, it will strengthen the core from within. It will build our community, our family, ourselves. We'll be zeicher to bonim uvanei bonim oiskim b'teira lishmo. We'll be zeicher to deresham evayrachim in the greatest simcha b'viyas ha'gerl m'herav yameinu.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Leiff, for the inspirational words. Okay, I'd like everyone to take a look at the sheet that was on your chair when you came in. I just want to quickly walk you through it. This won't take long. As I said at the introduction, we're going to focus on two things in Ignite Toronto. One is experiential. It's having that feeling that affects your neshama deeply. And the first event we have planned is a kumzitz. You'll see it on the sheet there. A Shalashudas kumzitz at the home of Heshi and Bela Konreich. That's on Stormont. And you see the times are there, Mincha first and Shalosh Shadis follow. If you've never experienced this, as the lights go down, to sit, it's for men by the way, as the lights go down, to sing your heart out for 45 minutes and connect to Hashem, it's an incredible elevating feeling. And that's something we want to try and see how it works out in Hashem. I encourage everyone to attend and to bring a friend. It really is something very, very special. And the next thing, and this is for both men and women, is an Emunah shir entitled Living with Emunah with Rabbi David Saperman, who's an expert on Emunah, and he can glean from the original sources and bring out such beautiful and such important ideas that all of us should hear. And this again is one of the talents that we have in Toronto. So important for everyone to hear this kind of information and to bring someone that needs a chizuk in Emunah. So that's coming up on June the 17th at the home of David and Chana Bain on Hillmount. Again, I encourage everyone to attend and to bring your friends. Now finally, I'm going to ask everyone if you could, like I said, we're trying to figure this out. We want to know what the community wants, what's going to work. In many ways, this is a new idea which is igniting a frum community, Baruch Hashem, that there's so many milas in our community, there's so much that we already have. And to bring that, if you will, over the edge, as Rabbi Leiff said, that the cup should overflow and affect everyone around us. So I'd like you to take a few minutes now and throughout the rest of the evening to think of some perhaps programming that you would like, perhaps for yourself or for someone else, that you think would have a great impact on the city. And please jot it down with your name, would be really appreciated. Finally, if you look at the bottom of the flyer, I have to thank Jerry Melnick for all his work. He's always a pleasure, and he's so accommodating, and he always does a very professional and great job. So Yeshua, thank you very much. Baruch Hashem, it's such a schus to have Rabbi Paysach Krohn here in Toronto again. I've worked with him together on various events in the past, and it's always such a pleasure. He was known at one point as the Maggid of Yerushalayim in his time in Israel. I think we can all say, without a doubt, he's clearly the Maggid of the world today. A person that has inspired the world over through his talks and his books, like no one else. Should point out that he has a new book out in the Splendor of the Maggid, which is a must-read. And Baruch Hashem, wherever he goes, he's inspiring, he's igniting Yidden. If you ever have the opportunity to spend a few minutes with him, you'll see that he's always getting a call from Almana, from someone with tzaris, someone who needs a shidduch. It's endless, and he's constantly giving inspiration, constantly giving chizuk to that person wherever he goes. In the few hours, you should know that he's been here in Toronto. He saw a child that was very sick, and other people he's mechazik with shidduchim, and it's endless. And Baruch Hashem, he's a person that lives with passion and gives it over. And I have to tell you, getting this event together was a lot of work, really a one-man show. And Rabbi Krohn was so helpful and helped do so much to make this happen and went really above and beyond. So it's a schus for me and for the entire city to welcome Rabbi Paysach Krohn.
I'm deeply grateful to my friend Rabbi Moshe Zionce, who, as he said, we have worked together on numerous projects. I thank him for inviting me on this special evening of inaugurating this great organization, Ignite Toronto. Before I begin, I just want to thank a few people. There's a fellow Gabi who is here tonight who brought me from the airport. The Weidbergs are hosting me. The Leibowitzes fed me. But there's one fellow that I got to know this afternoon. I never met him before. I spent over an hour with the Shapiro family. Some of you may know that Avi Shapiro needs a tremendous refuah shlema. He needs tremendous yata d'shmaya. And I would like to dedicate tonight, this holy night, this beginning, the launching of Ignite Toronto. It should be a schus for Chaim Avram Zalman, Ben Krendel, Nechama Brocha. Silver. They should have chizuk and they should be able to see only Yeshuas and Hatzlacha in their family. A number of years ago, perhaps the greatest mechaneches that America has ever had, Rebbetzin Zahava Bronstein, told me this story. She was making a Sheva Brachas for her son, and she wanted to have it in Rabbi Freifeld's home. Rabbi Shlomo Freifeld, one of the greatest mechanchim in America, one of the greatest Rebbeim. He was Nebuch not well already, and so they made the Sheva Brachas in his house. And Rabbi Freifeld told an incredible story. He told a story about the Kotzker Rebbe, who went once traveling, and he came to a cheder. And the little boys were learning with their Rebbe, and the Kotzker was going to faher them. Now they were finishing the Parsha Bereshis, not Chumash Bereshis, the Parsha Bereshis. And so the Kotzker Rebbe came in, and he said to one of the boys sitting up front, he says, Zog the Pasuk, say the Pasuk. Now, it's the last few psukim in the Parsha Bereshis, which are not about a story. It just lists a number of people who lived, how long they lived, and they died. But of course, the Rebbe had taught it with a niggin. So the little boy said, Vayechi Adam, Adam had gelebt, and it says how many years? Vayomos, and gestorben, and he died. Vayechi Sheis, Sheis had gelebt, and it says how many years he lived. Vayomos, and gestorben. Vayechi Enosh, Enosh had gelebt, and it says how many years he lived. Vayomos, and gestorben. And the Kotzker Rebbe said to the little boy, that's not how you say the pasuk. The boy was surprised. What do you mean? He said it exactly as the Rebbe said it. He said, Nein, Zog Nochamal. So the little boy said, Vayechi Adam, Adam had gelebt. And it says how many years? Vayomos, and gestorben, Vayechi Sheis, Sheis had gelebt. And the Kotzker said, that's not how you say the pasuk. Now, even the Rebbe was surprised. The kid was saying it exactly as he taught him. So the Kotzker said, this is how you say the pasuk. Vayechi had gelebt. Vayamos, es gestorben. Vayechi had gelebt. Vayamos, es gestorben. And then Rabbi Freifeld said something ingenious. He said, that's the pshat in the pasuk. Lo yamos ki echya. I will not live a life of death. Ki echya, while I am alive. The simple meaning is David HaMelech is saying, Lo yamos, I will not die, ki echya, but I will live and I will tell over the glories of Hashem, vasaper maseko. But Rav Freifeld teach different. Lo yamos, I will not live a life of death, a life of Verschlaffenkeit, a life without passion, ki echya, while I am alive. And that's what he was saying. Vayechi, a person has to live with excitement, with passion, with a goal, with accomplishment. And then at the end, Vayamos, a quiet death. But that's what we came to talk about here tonight. How are we going to be those people of Vayechi, living with passion, living with fervor, living with excitement, living with accomplishment? I remember one time I had the great zchus to be in Antwerp, and I met Rav Traeger. Rav Traeger is one of the Rosh Hashivas there, a mechutin of the Novominsker Rebbe. And he once told me a beautiful pshat in a pasuk. The pasuk, David HaMelech says in Kapitel Kufya Test, the longest kapitel, until 176 psukim. 8 with Aleph, 8 with Beis. And in the pasuk of Ches, one of the psukim it says, David HaMelech says, Chashti v'lo hismamoti. I hastened and I didn't delay lishmar mitzvaysecha, to observe your mitzvahs. So Rav Traeger asked, why does it say, I hastened and I didn't delay? Of course, if you hastened, obviously you didn't delay. So Rav Traeger said, no, the pshat is this way, that sometimes you see somebody running to a shir, or you see somebody running to shul, and you think, wow, that guy's so excited to get to the shir, he's so excited to get to the shul. Hey, Tilkon done. The guy woke up 25 minutes late, that's why he's rushing. And the same thing, you see a guy's running to the train. He must love his job. Of course he doesn't love his job. He woke up so late. But David HaMelech says, no, Chashti, I hastened. Not that I delayed, because I loved my job. Rabbi Moshe Tuvia and I were traveling on the plane together. And he told me a word that I had heard once from the Baba of a Rebbe. The Baba of a Rebbe said that when the alarm clock goes off 6:45, so that you should wake up on time, that's the Kol Yaakov. When you put your hand on the snooze alarm so that you should sleep another 20 minutes, that's the Yadayim Yadei Esav. In other words, a person has to get up with excitement. That's the Kol Yaakov. That's the Chashti V'lo Hismamoti. So I want to tell you a very personal story. And this story literally carries me till this day. I'll never forget, I always used to go to Camp Aguda. That's what I always did in the summer. I lived the whole year for Color War. And one year, Purim, around Purim time, my father says to me, he says, this year you're not going to camp. And I thought, oh my gosh, why am I not going to camp? My father can't afford it. As it is, the truth is, he really couldn't afford a whole summer. I only went for the middle trip. But I said, Pa, how come I'm not going? He says, no, you're going to go someplace special. I was thinking, there's nothing more special than Camp Aguda. What could be more special? He said, no, this year, there's a Knessia Gedola in Eretz Yisrael. And I'm sending you there. You'll be there by the Knessia. All the Gedolim of the world are going to be there. And you'll go with your tape recorder, and you'll meet the Gedolim afterwards. You'll stay for a whole time. It'll change your life forever. Well, I had never been on a plane. I think once, maybe I was on a plane to my Zadie in McKeesport, Pennsylvania. But otherwise, I wasn't on a plane. And I thought I was going, I couldn't believe going to Eretz Yisrael. It was 1964, before the 6-Day War, before yeshivas. There were so many yeshivas in Eretz Yisrael. And I went there, and it was the greatest experience of my life. I heard Rav Kreisworth speak, and Rav Moshe Feinstein speak, and Rav Chatzkel Sarna speak. And I saw all the Gedolim, Rav Elia Lapian with the Tillim that he said the first night of that Knessia was so memorable. It was just incredible. And in those days, there was no cell phones. People didn't have telephones in Eretz Yisrael. If you remember, if you wanted to make a call, you had to go to the post office and make an appointment to use the phone. And with the hours, with Eretz Yisrael and America, it was so confusing. So I got letters from my father every day, and I wrote him letters. And one day he says, I would like you to record for me. Please, you're going around with your tape recorder, record for me. There's a guy who wakes up people for slichas. It's going to be in Elul. Go in the small areas, in the Bukhari and Heiser, in those areas. Please record how this person goes and wakes up people for slichas. I asked around, people said he used to do it, he doesn't do it, he's not alive, he is alive. Nobody really knew for sure. But my father wrote me twice, and he asked me very much that I should go. So I took my, if you remember, tape recorder. It wasn't even cassettes, it was reel to reel. You probably don't even, anybody under 30 has no idea what I'm talking about. The reel to reel tape recorder. And I'm going with this, it looks like a big boom box. And I'm going at night, 4 o'clock in the morning. And I went with another friend, I was afraid to go at night. And then in the distance we hear somebody saying, Shtei toi fasliches. Shtei toi fasliches. So I was thinking, that's what my father wants me to record. Yeah, I could do that. What's the big deal? But then as we got a little bit closer, and I see this fellow, and he sees 2 big Americans coming towards him, he got so frightened. He said, Was willst du von mir? What do you want from me? So I said, Mein Tate mit Gebeten. My father asked me, he said that you sing a certain song, that you wake up people for slichas. You see, this is a tape recorder. I didn't even know if a guy knows what a tape recorder is. I said, when you say something, then I could play it over in America. And I want to do Kibbut Av. My father asked me. He looks me up and down. He thinks I'm so strange. But he said, okay. And he starts like this. He clears his voice and he sings. This is 4 o'clock in the morning. He's standing in front of a little apartment house. And he goes like this. Yisrael am kodesh steht auf lavoidas aboirei rotzka tzvi vegibor kari lasois ritzoin avicha shabashamayim Yisrael am kodesh steht auf lavoidas aboirei Yisrael am kodesh Yisrael, the holy nation, shteit oif, get up, lavodas aboirei, for the work of your Creator, for the service of your Creator. Rotz katzvi, run like a deer. Gibar kari, be strong like a lion. Lasois ritzoin avicha shabashamayim, to do the service of the Creator. And then he turns to me and he says, okay? Oh, that's okay. My father, without an exaggeration, listened to that tape recording 1,000 times. Every day. As a matter of fact, we lived in a very big house in Kew Gardens, and my mother, who loved classical music, we went to Yeshiva and Torah Vodaas in Brooklyn. So every morning she would put on classical music, and that's how she woke us up, because we had to get up early to get on the bus or the train. When I came home with that, forget about it. Every morning, Yisrael Am Kadosh. That's what we woke up to. And then in Camp Aguda, we played that every morning. And that's what passion is all about. Rotz katzvi, run like a deer. Gibar kari, be strong like a lion. Lasos v'tzoyin avicha shabashamayim, to do the will of your Father in heaven. And you know something? You take a look in the Shulchan Aruch, that's exactly how the Shulchan Aruch begins. The Tur Shulchan Aruch begins, Yehuda ben Taima Omer. Have az kanemer, be bold like a leopard. Kal kanesha, light like an eagle. Rotz katzvi, run like a deer. V'gibor kari, lasois v'tzoyin avicha shabashamayim. What Rabbi Moshe Zionce is trying to do is fulfill the first words of the Shulchan Aruch. Let's run like a deer. Be swift like a leopard. Be strong like a lion. Passion. Fervor, excitement. That's what Shulchan Aruch wants. The Tur could have started with any Mishnah in Shas, any Chazal, and that's what he started with. Igniting us. Passion, power, excitement. That's the beginning of Shulchan Aruch. And that's how a Yid has to live. And those of us who are fashlofen, who go through the davening just by rote, who go through the daf just by rote, that's what Rav Freifeld was trying to avoid. Lo yomos, let's not live a life of death, ki yechya, while we are alive. It's interesting. When it comes to talking about davening, tells us in the Gemara in Brachos Mem Zayin Amud Aleph, Mem Zayin Amud Beis, La'olam yashkim adam lebeis hakneses k'dei sheyizke v'yimne im asar rishonim. A person should come and he should be among the first 10. Why? Because those who come among the first 10, they are the ones who bring the Shekhinah, the level of Shekhinah. And they get the reward of everybody davening with a minyan. Of course, anybody who comes to the minyan gets a reward for davening with a minyan. But the first 10, they come with excitement, they come with fervor, they come with passion. They get the equal reward of everybody davening with a minyan. So I want to tell you a story now that you will never, ever forget. I can't say the name of the person. He asked me not to say his name. And he asked me not to say even the city that it happened. And not even the type of store that he had. So I want to tell you a great story that happened in a furniture store in Milwaukee. But it didn't happen in a furniture store and it didn't happen in Milwaukee. But listen to a great story about a furniture store in Milwaukee. The guy himself told it to me. I heard it first from my friend Reb Chaim David Lapidus in Baltimore. He told me the story and I called the fellow himself. It's unbelievable. What happened was that this guy owned a furniture store. And he comes in 9 o'clock and then by 9:30 he begins to smell smoke. He smells fire. And he's frantic because everything in the furniture store is all wood and curtains, desks, tables. So he runs down to the basement and sure enough, the place is on fire. He can't believe it. That's what he was smelling upstairs. And he tries to put out the fire with his fire extinguisher and it doesn't help because the fire is too big already. So he runs upstairs and frantically he's yelling into the telephone to the fire department. They should come. By the time they came, the place was gutted. It was too late. There was nothing they could do. They could barely save even the structure of the place. It took 9 months to rebuild that place. The only thing they could do was to hose down the next store, and they saved that store. But his place was gone. So he told me that a few days after the fire, he came to shul, and somebody said to him, he said, every day you come late. Every day you come to shul, but every day you come late. Why do you come late? So he said to the person, what's the difference? At the end I come. And then he realized, that's why this whole thing happened. Hashem showed him. The fire department. At the end they came. At the end I come is not good enough. A person who goes through davening and comes late, he's skipping half the words. Who are we kidding? If you go to a yeshiva minyan, it's fine, they daven slow. But somebody who walks in by Haidu or by Ashra, he's not saying all the words. It's impossible. At the end I come is not good enough. And that's why this man was matzdik all of a sudden, because he made that crack. At the end I come, Hashem showed him, I'll show you what it means at the end I come. The fire department, they also came at the end. It's not good enough. If davening is 7 o'clock, you don't belong in shul 7. You belong 10 to 7. Because if you start putting on tefillin at 7 o'clock, and they're starting brachas at 7, so there's no way you can say everything. You just can't catch up. Passion and excitement and fervor means that you get there early. Just like lahavdil, anybody who goes to a ball game, they're not going to come into the third inning. You know, the grand slam might happen in the first inning, and that's all the scoring. So that's, you know, maybe you don't understand baseball, it's a Haliga city. But everybody, you go to a ball game, you want to come early. You go to a business meeting, you come early. Nobody's going to walk in late. You can't walk in late to daven and go to a shir. At the end I come is not good enough. And it's not just a question of doing something quickly. I remember Rav Shalom Shadron used to say an expression. I found it later. There was a great tzaddik, a Spanish tzaddik, Rav Shlomo Ibn Gabirol. And he wrote a wonderful little sefer. It's called Mivchar Hapninim, Choice Expressions. And Rav Shalom always used to quote this. Pri hamahirut, he used to say it in a Sephardic accent, is hacharata. The fruit of rushing, mehirus, is charot, as regret. Passion and excitement doesn't mean rushing. It means thinking about, planning out how you're going to do it, and then to do it properly. Just to rush is just to regret. Doing a mitzvah with passion and excitement doesn't mean just rushing. It means thinking about it. What's the proper way to do it? It's not just a question of rushing. I'll tell you a story. I'm embarrassed to tell it to you. I'm not going to tell you what area it happened. But as you know, I'm a moil. So about a year and a half ago, a guy calls me up. He says, Rabbi Krohn, could you come do my son's bris? I said, great. Where do you daven? Oh, no, we can't do the bris in my shul. I said, why not? There's no room. He said, nah, we have the matzah minyan. I said, what does that mean? He said, we finish in less than 18 minutes. Could you imagine? He really said that. Matzahs have to be baked less than 18 minutes. So he comes from a matzah minyan, and he was embarrassed that his family should come and see that that's how he davens every day. So they had to have the bris someplace else. You know what passion means? Listen to this Gemara. It's an incredible Gemara that we will all be able to learn a great lesson in life. The Gemara is in Megillah Chav Zayin Amud Beis, and the same question is asked to 28 different Amoraim. The same question. You know what the question is? B'ma harachta yamim. How did you live long? The Gemara says, they asked Rabbi Elazar ben Shmuel, how did you live long? B'ma harachta yamim. He said, you know what? Miyamai, all my days, lo yasisi kapandria la Paysach Knesses. I never made a shortcut in the Paysach Knesses. In other words, if I was supposed to go from Avenue A to Avenue B, and instead of walking all around, I could have cut through the shul. I never did that. That's why I lived long. Then the Gemara says, Sholu Talmidim es Rav Preda. They asked Rav Preda, but how did you live so long? And he said, Miyomai like Yidmani Odon leBeis HaMedrash. Nobody ever came to shul before I did. Nobody ever came to the Beis HaMedrash before I did. And the Gemara goes on and on. They said, how did you live so long? And he said, I never took pride in the fact if my friend got embarrassed. On and on, 28 different things. So I remember every time I learned the Gemara, everybody wants to live long. So I was thinking, what am I supposed to do? 28 different ways. What are you supposed to do to live long? What's the right answer? Who's the right one over here? And then I saw something from the Hamek Dover. Rabbi Cheskel Monk from Tel showed it to me once. Incredible. In Parsha Shalach, in the Parsha of Tzitzis, the Hamek Dover, the Netziv, writes like this. He says, Ein hiluch avodas Hashem b'tmidu shel kol bnei adam shavin. None of us serve Hashem the same way. There's some who love learning Torah. There's some people who serve Hashem, they feel close through learning. There's some guys who love davening. That's when they feel so close to Hashem. And there's some guys, how do they feel close to being Hashem? Like Hashem, to be Medamal HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to do chesed all day. That's what they love. And he says, even in Torah itself, that some learn Be'iyun, some learn Be'kiyus. And then he says, some people love Mitzvah Shabbos, some people love Mitzvah Tzitzis. There's a whole array of ways of feeling close to Hashem. But he says, listen to the Yerushalmi, Kol ha'oisem mitzvah achas. Anybody who does a mitzvah, Meshivin loy, if he does it with consistency, Hashem answers him and gives him long life. And that's what says, Misha yiched loy mitzvah v'loy ovar olam olam. Somebody who's consistent. And Rav Yecheskel Monk says, you know what the pshat is? There's one word that all 28 of them said. Miyomai. All my days. And the Sefer Hasidim writes in Simon Reish Yud, take a look at this Gemara. Not one thing that they did is a deraisa. He didn't make a shortcut. He didn't take pride when somebody got embarrassed. He was the first one to come to shul. How did they live long? You know why? Miyomai. They did it every single day. That's what passion is. That's what fervor is. That's what excitement is. It doesn't mean that you rush. It means miyomai. I always did it. Every single day without fail. That's what passion is. That's what fervor is. That's what accomplishment is. Not that next Tuesday I'll do another chesed. No, that's not what it is. Every single day. And it doesn't have to be a deraisa. Tonight, every one of us should make up in our minds, what are we going to be makabel on ourselves to do a small thing? From now on, I'm going to say Tillim every day. I will never miss. I know some people that have a notebook. They have not missed doing a chesed in years, decades. I know somebody who every single day writes down something that he saw in Hashgacha Pratis. I know somebody who writes down every single day. He hasn't missed a minyan in over 25 years. Every day he finds a minyan someplace. That's what passion is. Miyomai, all my days. Tonight, every one of us has to make a commitment. What are we going to do? How are we going to inspire our friends to this passion of Miyomai? And that's how we live long. And that's how we accomplish. And that's how we grow as individuals and in the community. You know, there's a fascinating medrash, a fascinating Yalkut Shemaini. Tells us something amazing. Everybody wants to be zoicha to have good children. How does a person be zoicha to have good children? Take a look at the Yalkut Shemaini in Shmuel, the very first Yalkut Shemaini. Shmuel Aleph Aleph. You know, Elkanah used to go every year to be Oile Regel. So it says in the Medrash, one year he went on Route 80, cut right through America. And every night he would stop in his Winnebago, and he would stop with his big, truck or tent or whatever, this Winnebago, this moving vehicle that, you could live in. And then he would see the people. People say, hey, Rebbe Connor, where are you going? He says, come with me. We're going to Mishkan Shilai. And then the next year it says he didn't go on Route 80. He took a different route. Every year he took a different route. And every year he inspired people. Come with me to the Mishkan Shilai. We'll be inspired. So listen what Hashem says to him. You took people, Elecha people, and you were makar of them to do mitzvahs. When you were going to a shir, you brought people to the shir. When you were going to a lecture, you brought people to the lecture. You were going to the kumzitz, you brought people to the kumzitz. You help people grow. I'm going to give you a child that's going to help Klal Yisrael grow. We learned, Shebeschar Elkanah. What was the schar of Elkanah? Shmuel. And you know what Rabbi Chaim Vital writes? Lama zocha Elkanah lahamet Shmuel. Why did Elkanah be zocha to have such a great child? When he was doing a mitzvah, he says, I'm not going to do it alone. I'm going to inspire my neighbor. Could be a frum neighbor, but he just didn't think about going to the shir tonight. Could be a frum woman. She didn't think about going to make meals for the Avelim or to prepare for somebody's Shalom Zochar. Good people. But a lot of people are busy. They don't think about it. But if you stop and you go and you help and you make other people help together with you, that's the passion. That's how you're going to live long. That's how you're going to have great children. That's what the Medrash is telling you. Tell you an unbelievable story. What does it mean to inspire people? You don't even realize it. I get a call from a guy in Westchester. He's not from Bichlal. He says, Rabbi Krohn, I just had a boy. I'd like to do the bris, in a week and a half on Sunday. I said, well, you can't do it on Sunday? He Got to do it on the 8th day. Rabbi, I work. My family, nobody's coming on the 8th day. I said, I tried to tell him the Torah. What if he doesn't know anything about Torah? He wants to have a circumcision, that's the healthy thing to do. So he'll get a mile because he knows they do it best. So I didn't know what to say. I try to talk to him about, listen, Rabbi, if you're not going to do it, I'm going to get a doctor to do it and, or just get it done in a hospital. Listen, so you're allowed to do a bris after the 8th day. So I figured, okay, good, at least we'll do the bris after the 8th day, not before. Near the end of the conversation, I asked him something that I always ask everybody in the beginning. I don't know why I asked him this late. At the end, I said, how'd you get my name? You live up in Westchester, so far from where I live in Queens. He said, when my wife was expecting a few months ago, we have a religious cousin who lives in your neighborhood. His name is Nosson Meltzer. So we called him, and he said that, we should use you. So I said, Nosson Meltzer is your cousin? He says, why? So what? I said, he would feel terrible if he knew that his cousin had a bris and it wasn't on the 8th day. He says, you think it would make a difference in Nosson Meltzer? I said, I'm positive. All right, we'll do it Tuesday. I was positive. I'll come to the bris Tuesday. Nosson Meltzer will be there. He wasn't there at all. I see him in Shul Shabbos. I say, Nosson, Mazel Tov. He says, what do you mean? I said, what do you mean what I mean? You don't know your cousin had a boy? What cousin? I said, Nosson, you're joking with me. Westchester. The guy said, you were free. Oh, yeah, he called me a few months ago. I said, Nosson, you mean he didn't tell you that he had a boy? No. I knew he was expecting. He didn't call me. I said, Nosson, don't you realize when you get to Shemayim after 120 years, Hashem is going to give you reward for a bris being done on the 8th day because you're an Elech Hayid and you won't know what he's talking about. He said, Paysach, I don't know what you're talking about. And I said, Nosson, don't you realize? Because you're an Elech Hayid. You inspired somebody just being who you are to have a bris on the 8th day. And I told him the whole story. And that's when a person lives with passion. A person is an Erlich Hayir, he has hashpah on people, even though he doesn't realize it. And that's why that bris was done on time. So how are we going to ignite the fire in others? There's a great word from Yaakov Kamenetsky. You know how you can inspire even your closest neighbors and your closest family members. Listen, a genius insight from Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky. Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky tells us in Bereshis Chavtes, Pasuk Dalet Hey and Vov, Yaakov sees the shepherds right before he meets Rachel. Vayam Lahem Yaakov says to them, Achai, my brothers, Ma'ayinatam, where are you guys from? Vayam Mechoron, we're from Choron. He says, do you know Lavan? Yeah, we know Lavan. He says, is everything peaceful with him? Yeah, Shalom, everything is great with him. And then here comes Rachel. So Rabbi Yaakov asks a question. Yaakov never met these guys. What do you mean, Achai, my brothers? He just should introduce himself. What is he's calling them brothers? He's talking to them with such friendship. Zokt Rabbi Yaakov something ingenious. When Yaakov Avinu saw what the shepherds were doing, they were bringing in the sheep too early. The sheep still had the right to graze. He was going to give them musar. But you can't give musar to anybody if that person doesn't feel you love them. Who are you to give me musar? I don't even know you. No, but if you're my friend, then I could listen to you. That's why Yaakov started the conversation, Achai, my brothers, we're all part of one society. And he spoke to them words of peace and words of love and words of concern. Then, at the end, he was able to tell them, Hey, it's not the time to bring in Hamikna, to bring in the sheep. If you want to inspire other people, even from people, you can't just call up a guy stam and say, hey, come with me to a shir. Who are you to tell me what to do? But if somebody feels you love them, that you care for them, you love every yid, and you want every yid to grow just like you, then you can inspire others. Ignite Toronto is here. The basis of igniting Toronto is Avos Yisrael. If you love each other and care for each other, then you can get others to do what you want them to do, to grow just like you want them to grow. But if you don't really care about anybody, and you're just involved in yourself, there's no way that you can get others to grow and others to be inspired. Rabbi Aaron Kotler writes, Ki ha'olam miskayeh mirak al yedei hamagishim achrayas. The world exists only like people like Rabbi Moshe Zionce, who feel an achrayas for the tzibur. And say, we'll let the tzibur take care of itself. I'll go my own way. Rabbi Moshe Zionce didn't have to start this organization, Ignite Toronto. Toronto has a great reputation, as Rabbi Moshe Tuvia mentioned. It's an Ir V'Ein B'Yisrael. But he wants to see all of us grow, all of us be higher, and we can become higher. Each of us is good, but each of us can be better. That's what Ignite Toronto is all about. Ignite Toronto is for the Hamish Olam, to grow in the highest levels that they can. Feeling an achrayus for each other. That's what it's all about. As a matter of fact, the Nefesh HaChaim, Rabbi Chaim Volozhiner, used to always tell his son, Shazeh kol adam, this is what a person is all about. Loi la'atzmai nivra. You are not created for yourself. You're created to help other people. And Rabbi Chaim used to criticize his son, Rabbi Yitzchak. He said he would criticize me when he saw that I didn't get involved with the problems of others. So let me tell you an amazing thing. It's one of the greatest insights that I ever heard in my life. How can we change? How can we be better? I remember Rabbi Chanoich Ehrentraut once mentioned this at an Aguda convention. The Pasuk tells us, Vahi kashe yolda Rachel es Yosef. When Rachel gave birth to Yosef, Vayom Yaakov v'Lavan, Yaakov says to Lavan, Shalcheni, you could send me, ve'elcha el makomi la'artzi. I'm ready to go on my way. So what do you mean? Why now? All of a sudden, because Yosef is born, so Yaakov feels a confidence? What happened when he had Yisachar, who all the learning came from Yisachar? All the Rebbeim come from Shimon, Malchus comes from Yehuda, Kahuna comes from Levi. What's up is Yosef? And the Shem Shmuel says a gevaldik avort. He says it's in the name. Yosef means to add. Yaakov said, once I see that I have a child who's never satisfied with the status quo, he wants to go higher, higher, and higher. That's the kid that I can take with me to Golus. That's the one that I can face the world with. And that's the commitment each one of us has to take tonight. Tonight, we have to become people of Yosef. If you learn Mishnayos till now every day, learn one more. If you said a Perek Tillim till now, make up, you're going to say one more. You learned a certain amount of Gemara every day, learn a little bit more. And if you never don't have a Shir in Gemara, tonight make that commitment. If you never said Tillim before, have a Seder in Tillim so that you finish Tillim once a month. Whatever you've been doing, Yosef, more, higher. That's what we need Ignite Toronto for. Because that's how you face the Golus. That's what Yaakov is teaching us. I want to share with you a fabulous story. Amazing story. And you'll see how it's still negea to Toronto. It's absolutely incredible. Many years ago, I had the chus to be in South Africa. And I met Rav Moshe Sternbach, who today is one of the Gedolei HaTorah in Eretz Yisrael. And he told me an amazing story. He said in 1939, there was the yeshiva in Frankfurt, and the Rosh Yeshiva was a man by the name of Rav Moshe Schneider. Rav Moshe Schneider was a very, very strong individual, very principled person. And unfortunately, the Gestapo shut down the yeshiva in 1939, and only because of two people in England was the yeshiva able to move to Stamford Hill. One of them was the Av Bezdin, Rabbi Cheskel Abramsky, and the other one was the Chief Rabbi Dr. Joseph Hertz. Rabbi Moshe Schneider always had a Koros HaToy for him, because it was because of him the yeshiva was able to come to England. Now, there were bombings going on already. The Second World War had begun. And eventually he would have to move his yeshiva from Stamford Hill to Manchester. But while they were in Stamford Hill, the yeshiva was poverty-stricken. And they didn't have enough bread and cake and rolls for the boys. So there's a bakery, it's still there today, the Grozinski family. And they said to Rav Moshe Schneider that all the bakery goods, baked goods that haven't been sold after 3 days, some of the Bachram could come and they could pick it up. And they give it to the yeshiva for free. So there was a rotation. And there were sometimes boys didn't want to go. You know, English kids are very proper, and these bags were filled with, flour and crumbs, and they didn't want to go on the bus that way. They're embarrassed. So there was one kid in the yeshiva, his name was Moshe, and he agreed to take the bread and the rolls, even if it wasn't his turn. He never missed his own turn. He did it with a slivus, with a passion, but he decided if somebody else doesn't want to go, he's going to go. Rav Moshe Schneider had this idea. I don't want kids to fall out of bed and just come into shul to daven. I'd like them to get up a half hour early before davening, should learn Mishnayos, learn halacha, and so therefore, I need somebody to wake up these kids. Now, if let's say they daven at 7, So the boys had to be woken up at 6:30. This boy had to get up at 6:15. So who's going to get up 6:15? They were learning till late. It was another boy, Moshe. Not the first Moshe, different Moshe. He said, Rebbe, I'll wake up the kids in the morning. It's not a problem. I'll be up 10 after 6. I'll go wake up everybody 6:30. They'll all be in the Beis Medrash. Fine. One day, Rabbi Moshe Schneider is giving a shir. And listen what he says. Moshe Reichman, who got the bread for the family, for the yeshiva, one day he's going to be so wealthy that the whole world will know about his wealth. And Moshe Sternbach, who got everybody up to daven, someday the whole world will know of his Torah because of his passion to get up early so everybody should be able to learn Torah. And that which Rabbi Moshe Schneider said, that Rabbi Moshe Reichman, because he got the bread and the baked goods as a bocher, that the whole world would know his wealth, came true. And that which he said about Rabbi Moshe Sternbach, that he would be from the Gedolei Hador, that also came true. So you have Rabbi Moshe Schneider, Rabbi Moshe Reichman, Rabbi Moshe Sternbach, and Rabbi Moshe Zionce. Right? Eventually. That'll be the progression. Yeah, that's right. Give him a clap. That's true. And you know what? I heard something so delicious that Moshe Reichman once said, I wish I would have been the one to wake up the boys in the morning. That's why he's Moshe Reichman. So I'll tell you one more story we'll review, and then we'll end with a great thought. I have the great zchus to be close to Rav Yankov Galinsky. Rav Yankov Galinsky, already today, is over 90 years old. He's traveled all around the world to speak, and I'm sure that many of you have heard him here in Toronto. And he once told me a story. I was very, very close to him. He used to come to America many Shabbosim. He spent in our home. And he told me that he was very, very wild as a child. Very wild. And his parents didn't know what to do with him. He was hanging from the ceilings. And if you know him, even as a 50-year-old man, you knew that you could believe that this kid was hanging from the ceilings. And his parents did not know what yeshiva they should send him to. Now, they were definitely not going to send him to Slobodka, because Slobodka was godless Adam, and he was already a 12-year-old who was godless Adam. You know, like he felt he was the greatest. So they couldn't send him to a yeshiva like that. They had to send him, they felt, on a varda. That broke the person. It's not necessarily the way we can be machanach our children today, but for that time it was fine. So they told him, go. They got him a train ticket, and he comes to Navardik. He told me, the mashgiach is here. He's a little kid, can hardly fit over the desk. Mashgiach is looking to see who this kid is. He said, "Was willst du?" He says, "I'm here." What do you mean you're here? I'm here. I'm ready to learn. Well, that's not how you come into a yeshiva. What do you mean you're here? You're ready to learn. Who are you? Tells him, Yankov Galinsky, from whatever town he came from. He says, go out of the yeshiva. Rabbi Yankov told me he was thrown out before he even got in. He was thrown out. They said, go down the block. There's a shul there. There's Gain Len and Abyssal Musa. Then you'll come back. You'll talk to me. Let's see what happens. So it was already dusk in the evening. He didn't know the area. It was the first day he was there. He goes into a shul. It's dark. Dark. Except there's one fellow sitting, like a 20-year-old. He's sitting up front. He doesn't know who he is. He can only see his back. And there's a candle on the table. And that guy is learning, whoever he is. And he's learning with a geschmack. And he's learning a Gemara in Erevin Nun Daled Amud Aleph. And he's saying a certain Gemara over and over and over. And again, Rabbi Yankov said it to me with a niggin. And he said like this. The young man was learning. And the Gemara says, Omalei Shmuel Rabbi Yehuda. Shmuel said to Rabbi Yehuda, Shinin, a sharp one. And the man was singing the Gemara, Chatoiv v'yechoil, Chatoiv v'yechoil, Chatoiv, Chatoiv, Chatoiv v'ishtei. Chatoiv v'yechoil means grab and eat, grab and drink, the high alma, this world, the Azlina Minei, that we're all going to leave. Nobody lives forever. Kibei Hilul Adamya is like a wedding. What does the Gemara mean? The Gemara means chaparain, as much as you can. Eat and drink. Grab whatever you can, because the wedding, it's like a wedding, the greatest wedding. By 2 o'clock in the morning, it's all over. It's finished. Grab while you're in this world, because this world is like a wedding, the most beautiful wedding, but it ends. But the Balei Musar understand the Gemara. Chatoiv yachol, grab every mitzvah. Grab every opportunity to learn. We're not here forever. Chatoiv yachol, chatoiv yishtei, because the high amod aslinim inei, kibei elul adamya. You're not going to get a chance to do mitzvahs in Olam HaEmes. Now's the time. And this went into his neshama, because the fellow was saying over the Gemara over and over, and he was singing it with such a beautiful niggin. And Rabbi Yaakov came back to the Mashgiach with humility. And he said, the Rebbe gehört was daferen. I heard what I had to hear. And of course he was taken into the yeshiva and he was there. That's where he learned the rest of his life. And he always had the Navardik Nusach. And you know when he told over this story? At the hesped of that young man was the stipler. That was the hesped that Rabbi Yankov Galinsky told over at the stipler's levaya. He said, that's what inspired me. How that young man was learning Chatoy v'Yachoil. That's passion. That's fervor. That's excitement. Take advantage of every moment. Chatoy v'Yachoil, Chatoy v'Yishtei. So let's review everything that we said, and we'll end with a great thought and a great story. Let's remember what Rav Freifeld taught us. The Kotzke said, "Vayechi et gelebt." You have to live with excitement, live with passion, live with fervor. Lo yamus ki yechel. Let's not live a fashlof in a life while we are alive, a life of death while we are alive. Let's remember David HaMelech said, "Chashti v'lo hismamoti." I hastened and I didn't delay. The reason I got excited because I wanted to get there on time because I love doing the mitzvahs. Let's remember how the Shulchan Aruch starts. Rotz katzvi, gibor kari, lasos v'tzoin avicha shabashamayim. Run like a deer. Be strong like a lion. That's what passion is all about. It's not just a question of rushing. It's not a question, pri hamahirus hacharota. The fruit of rushing is regret. It has to be with seichel. If you rush, you daven in less than 18 minutes, that's a matzah minyan. It's worth nothing. At the end, I come is not good enough. You have to be there on time. You have to be there early. That shows your excitement for the mitzvah. Miyomai. Every day, tonight, make a commitment. Every day from now on, I'm going to say 3 Parakim Tilim and write it down. Keep it in a notebook. You'll see, I guarantee if you do it with chesed, every day you do a chesed for somebody else, after a month, you will not be able to go to sleep until you did a chesed for somebody else. And that book will become your most treasured possession. Miyomai. Take on something tonight. Doesn't have to be a deraisa. But that's how you're going to inspire yourself and you'll get to inspire people. That's how Elkanah got a son like Shmuel. You know why? Because every year he did something else. He went a different route to be able to bring along Heilige mention. Wasn't necessarily people that were not from, even people that were from. He got them inspired so they should be able to come to the Mishkan Shilai. Rabbi Yankov taught us, how do you inspire people? You have to love them. Achai. We're all brothers and sisters, regardless of our level of frumkeit. We're all in it together. That's why we want to grow together and be better. That's what Rabbi Aaron told us. That the world exists because people who feel an achrayas. The Shem Shmuel taught us that we all have to be people of Yosef. Higher, higher, higher. Accept more upon yourself. Not so much that you shouldn't be able to do it, but every day do a little bit more. That's what the Nefesh HaChaim says. Lo la'atzmo nivra. More Mishnayos, more Tillah, more Gemara, more Chesed. Let's remember the passion that Moshe Reichman, how did he become who he became? Because as a teenage kid, he had the passion to serve the food and bring the food for the yeshiva. How did Moshe Sternberg become who he became? Because with a passion, he got up early to make sure that others learned. And that's how that yeshiva became great. Chatoy v'yachoil. Let's grab and eat, grab and drink. Let's take every opportunity to do mitzvahs. I just want to end with this beautiful thought and beautiful story. In our neighborhood in Queens, we had a young fellow who used to come with his twin brother, Simcha Barnett and Michael Barnett. Michael. Simcha was Steve. Michael was Michael. They were Balei Tshuva. They look exactly alike. You can't tell them apart. And they were inseparable as kids. Inseparable. Everything that they did together. One of the things that Steve, who now is Simcha, told me, they loved to take bike tours. And they took bike tours all over the world. At that time they were in Frum, so there were young men and young women that traveled by plane someplace, and they would bike through various countries. One of the places that they went to was New Zealand. Now if you look it up on a map tonight, you'll see New Zealand has a North Island and a South Island. And it's separated by a body of water. It's called Cook Strait. And what happened was that they went there by plane, they went through the whole North Island, got on a boat, came to the South Island, and then he told me that after he got off the ferry, there was an 8-mile path in the South Island. And he said it was almost like going straight up. And everybody was going crazy because as well as their legs were developed with muscles to be able to ride a bike, this 8-mile path was just brutal. Now, every little bit of what they were carrying made the ride more difficult. So he said he saw guys ahead of him. They would throw off a wrench, throw off a book, throw off an extra tire, because all these things that they were carrying made it difficult. And he told me, he said years later when he became a Baal Tshuva, he realized that there was a great significance to that. He said, because if I wanted to reach the top of the spiritual mountain, there was a lot of baggage that I was carrying that I would have to get rid of. So that ride up the mountain, when the guys were getting rid of all that extra baggage, taught me a great lesson. That if I want to become a Baal Tshuva, and I want to reach that height, I have to get rid of that baggage. I was so touched by that when my son came home from davening, my son Avram Zelek, who Rabbi Tuvia knows, he said, Tati, you know, that's a Paysach. I said, what do you mean? What Paysach? Listen how he touched it. Miyale Bahar Hashem. Who is the one who can climb on top of the mountain? He's got to have clean hands. He's got to get rid of all that luggage that he's been carrying, all the baggage that he's been carrying. I was mamish nispoil. I took out the Migdash Ma'at, which is the fabulous Perish on Tillim, and he says that the word masa, which means carrying a load, stands for 3 things. Masa is spelled mem, sin, aleph. Momoin, simlois, and oichel. Money, clothes, and food. Anybody who's into money, into clothes, into food, he's carrying a heavy load that he's never going to be able to get up to the top of the mountain. Now, we all need money, we all need food, we all need clothes. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the excesses. That's what the Paysach is telling us. You got to be clean. You got to get rid of that heavy load that you're carrying. We can't be so involved in money, in clothes, and in food. But then I realized something else that the Paysach is telling us. It's not just a question of going up on top of the mountain. Tonight, we're all on top of the mountain. Tonight, we're all inspired. Tonight, we heard Rabbi Moshe Tuvia. We heard Rabbi Zionce as well. And we're all together, so we feel that we're going to do something. But it's not just a question of tonight. Miyale Bahar Hashem. But you know what's even more important? Umi Yakum. Who's going to remain standing up there? That's what it's all about. Not only that one kinos that sends us high to the mountain. Miyale Bahar Hashem Umi Yakum. That's what Ignite Toronto is all about. To make sure that those moments of inspiration, we carry them. Not only Yala, but Miyokum. Hashem should help each and every one of us. We should make the commitments to be better. Make the commitment to make sure that our friends are Yosef, our friends will grow together with us. And more important than anything else, not only to experience that moment of inspiration, but to hold on to it. And if we could reach that top of that mountain, Hashem will grant us that we should be able to come together with the Mashiach Tahar Hashem. It should be happening b'mheira v'yameinu. I thank you for inviting me, and I thank you for listening. Good night.
This will only take a minute. A few quick thank yous. First of all, thank you very much to Rabbi Krohn and Rabbi Leiff for everything you've done and for inspiring us tonight. Thank you to all the good friends that helped promote tonight's event. Thank you to my brother Zionce and everyone else that helped at the door as people came in. I'd like to thank my parents, Avi Mari, Ves Imi Marasi, my father, my mother, my teacher, for joining me in this journey to Ignite Toronto, for hearing us every step of the way. And I'd like also tonight's event to be a refuah shalema as well for my father, Rav Meir Zisel ben Chayasara. Thank you as well to my family, and in particular my wife, for putting up with me during these last couple weeks. It's been very hectic, very busy, and she's always so understanding and is always so helpful. And thank you everyone here for coming out. Again, if you want to fill out that sheet, it's appreciated. Just we should grow together. We'll be having a Marav now to follow.